Squad V6 is dropping on September 27th, and with that, we're going to be getting the Infantry Combat Overhaul. Yeah, if you watched my last video, I said that I thought the Infantry Combat Overhaul was nearing the ready and full release state, but I was thinking more like 3 to 4 weeks. I had no idea that the last playtest we had was literally just 10 days before the real release of ICO. Now, although this is surprising, I'm also not entirely surprised because the last 2 playtests, like I said, felt really good. I mean, there were some minor bugs y'all have mentioned, because in my video I said it was relatively bug-free, and a few of y'all were like, hey, but all of this... Okay, yes, of course there are some bugs, but for the most part, I actually didn't really notice any, and any that I did notice, it didn't take away too much from the gameplay for me to even mention them. Optimization was more or less great, and I just had a blast playing it. Weapon balance was there, the factions felt good, the weapons felt good. It all just felt like a real release build during the playtest. I think this is going to be the largest squad update to date, since a lot of what OWI and the devs have been doing have been more back-end stuff. They mentioned fixing the optimization process and the map building process, that way we have better releases in the future, but unfortunately we just have never actually seen those type of results, aside from that one playtest where we were able to play the Sunshine Islands. It's been a little slow on the squad content front this year, but the ICO changes, I think, will completely make up for it. And it's okay to be cautious. It's okay to be a little nervous, but I think those of y'all who have been saying that the game is going to die because of ICO are being extremely exaggerative. It's exaggerate. I don't know if you're exaggerating. Exaggerative. I don't even know if that's a real word, but you know what I mean. You're exaggerating, you're overblowing it. It might change the way you play, but good players are still going to be good players. Bad players are still going to be bad players. But more or less, you're going to have really fun firefights, and you're going to have a gameplay loop that I think is a lot better. Now, I'm not going to lie. Normally, I spend a day or two reading through this. I talk with y'all on stream about it, and then I make a pretty lengthy script to then record and publish a video. But this just took me by such surprise that I just kind of opened it, and we're going to chat about it real quick. Since a lot of these paragraphs and these sections in this blog post, we actually did cover in my last video, and I'd hate to just kind of recreate the same exact video. Namely, the things that we definitely already covered were the weapon archetype sections, or I guess they call the firearm archetypes, and our expectations for combat. Now, we already mentioned all these sections. We got short rifles and carbines, full-length rifles, bullpups, battle rifles, automatic rifles, light machine guns, medium machine guns, heavy machine guns, grenades and grenade launchers, DMRs, snipers, and pistols. But I do want to say one thing. I was under the impression that bullpups in my last video actually did less damage. I don't know if this is like some weird squad rumor that has been passed down since I first started playing the game. I have always assumed that the L85, since it was the very first bullpup with the British faction, has always just done less damage. The devs have told me that they don't do less damage, so I don't know. Am I just missing all my shots with the bullpups? Am I crazy? Do you guys also get like 3-hit kills only with the bullpups? Either way, the devs say it's not supposed to be 3-hit kills, but I could have sworn these bullpups do less damage. Either way, I just want to correct the record and fix what I said in our last video. Bullpups are not supposed to be doing less damage. If for whatever reason they are, they will fix it, but they don't do less damage. They do have, you know, some differences when it comes to close quarters combat, and they have some sharp recoil upwards, but that's about it. Now, the TLDR on these weapon archetypes is that, once again, link up in the right to my last video if you want to talk about them in depth. But basically, depending on what you're actually going to play, whether you're using a long rifle like a C7 with the Canadian forces, or maybe using a battle rifle like the G3, or maybe FAL with the irregular militia forces, you're going to have to change the way that you play the game. This is huge, and the more times that I spent playing the playtest, the more times that I realized I need to actually play differently. If you just keep trying to force your old playstyle into squad with the ICO, you will not have a good time, and you will come out thinking that the game is dead, the game is dying, the game isn't fun, and it's kind of going to be your own fault. I really strongly encourage you guys to just take a minute, slow down, figure out what your weapon strengths are, figure out what the enemy's weapon strengths are, and then play accordingly. And of course, now you want to play a lot more within your fire team or your squad. You're really going to have a much better time if you do that. Now, in this blog post, they go over pretty much everything that they've changed over the past few months. And if you've been keeping up with my videos, then you would know more or less everything they talked about. Since each video, I was going over the changes and how they felt and whether they were good or bad. But this is kind of a good recap of what is now going to be in the ICO. The biggest thing that I do want to reiterate again is that if you played maybe the first 1, 2, or 3 playtests and you stopped playing because you were getting nauseous, I don't want to say for sure that you're going to have a much better experience and you're not going to get nauseous anymore. I'm not you. I don't know what you saw, but I will say they did a lot of things over the past few updates to try and make nausea almost non-existent. Talking with the devs, it seems like they have solved maybe 90%, 95% of those issues where players were trying to play the game but just physically couldn't because you just couldn't stand it. Obviously, the devs and OWI don't want to make a game where people physically get nauseous and don't want to play it. So if you are having issues after this update next week, don't just give up. Trust me, the devs don't want that to happen. There might be some weird field of view issue. There might be this weapon sway, might be some part of the suppression effect. Let them know, but I believe that we're in a really good spot for it. Now, in addition to these weapon archetypes, I think it's also important to know that the devs have looked into everything when it comes to ICO, not just the infantry, but also the game modes, the kind of meta when it comes to fob spam, and also vehicles. The devs state they saw an increased back and forth capture and gunfight dynamic, resulting in more engaging and intense moments on the field of combat. The overhaul has introduced new dimensions of gameplay, not only affecting firefights, but also map traversal and vehicle usage, offering fresh challenges and opportunities for players of all levels. I think this is very important to note and is true in my experience. The firefights were not only fun, but I was working with vehicles a lot more because they were more helpful. They didn't just go off and play World of Tanks, and that might just be the players that were playing in the playtest, but literally one IFV, even if it just has a 50 cal on top, is such a force multiplier in the ICO that you're going to want one next to your infantry squad at all times. Additionally, because you move a little slower in the ICO, you're also going to want to mount up, whether it's in this like an APC or maybe a helicopter. It's so much easier to move around when you use your vehicles that it was being used much more often during the playtest than real games of squad. Additionally, something that I think you guys may want, since so many people have mentioned, okay, we got the Infantry Combat Overhaul, but what about the Vehicle Combat Overhaul? Now, I don't know if this is going to come to fruition. I don't know if we're going to get a full vehicle overhaul, but the devs have stated that while it was the designs team intent to increase the effectiveness in vehicles as part of the overhaul, it has sparked discussions within our community and our development team as players raised valid concerns about a potential imbalance. Rest assured, our design team is carefully considering player feedback and contemplating adjustments to armored combat to ensure a fair and enjoyable gaming experience should the need arise in the future. Now, like I said, I don't think this is confirming a vehicle combat overhaul, but it is addressing the main issue that many of more experienced players did state. It is much harder for a random player to just pick up an AT4 or Carl Gustav and actually get hits on armored vehicles now. Not only do you have the slow ADS speed, but you also have the weapon sway, you have the picture-in-picture optics with some of them, and if a vehicle gets a general idea of where infantry are, they're just going to pepper the entire area with their rounds, and you're going to be suppressed and unable to hit your shots. I don't necessarily know if a vehicle combat overhaul in terms of making them squishier, like they're not as tanky when it comes to taking 4, 5, 6, 7 rounds. I don't know if that's going to be the answer. But with the amount of detail that the devs put into the infantry side of things, I would be shocked if they don't have a vehicle update sometimes in the next year or so. Once again, I don't know what extent it's going to be, but they're not going to be okay with just 1 or 2 vehicles running riot the entire round. That's just not a fun gameplay loop, and it's going to completely negate all the benefits of ICO. Throughout the entire process, they've listened to the community and they've addressed things, and playtest 1, if you played it, I don't want to say it's very different from the last playtest, but it is definitely different. It's not nearly as hardcore, it isn't as cumbersome, it isn't as slow. And I think right now, playtest 8 and what is going to be more or less ICO and squad is in a very, very comfortable spot that maintains the gameplay experience that the devs wanted, but also doesn't quite go so hardcore where you're going to make the game not fun for the majority of people. This update is going to be different. It's going to be probably a little scary if you are the dev team, and if you're a big squad fan, it's probably going to be scary too. You don't know if it's going to ruin your game. You don't know if it's going to kill the game, but I really don't think we have to worry about that. I do think we're going to have to take some time to relearn the game itself and to get good again. There's going to be so many clips of just skill issuing all over the place, but the devs throughout the entire process have been tweaking and listening to the community, and I think it's in a really good spot. Once again, I'm surprised it's going to be on September 27th, but that means that, hey, maybe at the end of this year, we're going to get some new updates like new maps and some Pacific stuff, and we now no longer have to worry about this ICO taking up so much time, and the devs can keep getting us brand new content. Now, I'm cautiously optimistic when it comes to Squad, but what do you guys think? Were you surprised about the September 27th date? Do you think it's ready? Do you think it's really not ready? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm super excited to hear about what y'all are thinking about this September 27th launch date. But honestly, I think it's going to be a good thing. I know a lot of the players on the potato fields, which if you haven't played Squad with us in the potato fields, definitely do that when ICO drops next week. I know so many people have had many positive things to say. I'm curious what y'all have to say now. So let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, peace.
Yeah, they